growing up a sawmensch, yes, an illustrious career. I should hasten to admit, however, that there was a considerable hiatus between the first stolen book and the second. Another noteworthy point is that the first was stolen from snow, the second from fire, not to omit that others were also given to her. All up, she owned 14 books, but she saw her story was being made up predominantly of 10 of them. Of those 10, 6 were for her by a hidden Jew, and one was delivered by a soft yellow-dressed afternoon. When she came to write her story, she would wonder exactly when the books and the words started, not just to mean something, but everything. Was it when she first set eyes on the room with shelves and shelves of them? Or when Max Vandenberg arrived on Himmel Street carrying handfuls of suffering and Hitler's Mein Kampf? Was it reading in the shelters, the last parade to Dachau? Was it the word shaker? Perhaps there would never be a precise answer as to when and where it occurred. In any case, that's getting ahead of myself. Before we make it to any of that, we first need to tour Liesl Hemminger's beginnings on Himmel Street and the art of Sormensching. Don't even know what's happening. Upon her arrival, you could still see the bite marks of snow on her hands and the frosty blood on her fingers. Everything about her was undernourished, wire-like shins, coat hanger arms. She did not produce it easily, but when it came, she had a starving smile. Her hair was a close enough brand to German blonde, but she had dangerous eyes, dark brown. You didn't really want brown eyes in Germany around that time. Perhaps she received them from her father, but she had no way of knowing, as she couldn't remember him. There was really only one thing she knew about her father. It was a label she did not understand. A strange word. Communist. It's written funny. She'd heard it several times in the past few years. There were boarding houses crammed with people, rooms filled with questions, and that strange word was always there, somewhere, standing in the corner, watching from the dark. It wore suits, uniforms, no matter where they went. There it was each time. Her father was mentioned. When she asked her mother what it meant, she was told it wasn't important, that she wouldn't worry about such things. At the boarding house there was a healthier woman who tried to teach the children to write using charcoal on the wall. Liesl was tempted to ask her the word meaning, but it never eventuated. One day that woman was taken away for questioning. She didn't come back. When Liesel arrived in Molking, she had at least some inkling that she was being saved, but that was not a comfort. If her mother loved her, why leave her on someone else's doorstep? Why? The fact that she knew the answer, if only at the most basic level, seemed beside the point. Her mother was constantly sick, and there was never any money to fix her. She knew that, but that didn't mean she had to accept it. No matter how many times she was told that she was loved, there was no recognition that the proof was in the abandonment. Nothing changed the fact that she was a lost, skinny child in another foreign place, with more foreign people, alone. The Hubermans lived in one of the small block houses on Himmel Street. A few rooms, a kitchen, and an outhouse shared with neighbours. The roof was flat, and there was a shallow basement for storage. It was not a basement of adequate depth. In 1939, this wasn't a problem. Later, in 42 and 43, it was. When air raids started, they always needed to rush down the street to a better shelter. In the beginning, it was a profanity that made the greatest impact. It was so vehement and prolific. Every second word was either Sormensch or Sorkel or I can't pronounce this word. Something else. For people who aren't familiar with these words, I should explain. Saw, of course, refers to pigs. In the case of Sormensch, it serves to castigate, berate, or plain humiliate a female. Sorkel, pronounced Sorkel, is for male. The other word can be translated directly into that word. I'm sorry, where is it? That word, however, does not differentiate between the sexes. It simply is. Sormensch du Dreichen Tickets. Liesel's foster mother shouted the first evening when she refused to have a bath. You filthy pig, why won't you get undressed? She was good at being furious. In fact, you could say that Rosa Huberman had a face decoration. Face decorated with constant fury. That was how the creases were made in the cardboard texture of her complexion. Liesel naturally was but bathed in anxiety. There were no way she was getting into any bath, or into bed for that matter. She was twisted into one corner of the closet, like washroom, clutching for the non-existent arms of the wall for some level of support. There was nothing but dry paint, difficult breath, and the deluge of abuse from Rosa. Leave her alone, Hans Huberman entered the fray. Leave her alone, Hans Huberman entered the fray. His gentle voice made its way in, as if slipping through a crowd. Leave her alone. That was Leave her to me. Sorry. He moved closer and sat on the floor against the wall. The tiles were cold and unkind. You know how to roll a cigarette? He asked her. And for the next hour or so, they sat in the rising pool of darkness, playing with the tobacco and cigarette papers, and Hans Huberman smoking them. When the hour was up, Liesel could roll a cigarette moderately well. She still didn't have a bath. Some facts about Hans Huberman. He loved to smoke. The main thing he enjoyed about smoking was the rolling. He was a painter by trade and played the piano, accordion. This came in handy especially in winter, when he could make a little money playing in the pubs of milking like the Nolla. He had already cheated me in one world war, but would later be put into another as a perverse kind of reward. There would somehow manage to avoid me again. To most people, Hans Huberman was barely visible, an unspecial person. Certainly his painting skills were excellent. His musical ability was better than average somehow though, and I'm sure you've met people like this. He had the ability to appear in the background, even if he was standing at the front of a queue. He was always just there, not noticeable, not important or particularly valuable. The frustration of the appearance, as you can imagine, was in complete misleadance, let's say. There most definitely was value in him, and did not go unnoticed by Liesel Memminger. The human child, so much cannier at times, don't know what that word is, there than the stupefyingly ponderous adult. She saw it immediately, his manner, the quiet air around him. When he turned the light on in the small call-house washroom that night, Liesel observed the strangeness of her foster father's eyes. They were made of kindness and silver, like soft silver melting. Liesel, upon seeing those eyes, understood that Hans Huberman was worth a lot. Some facts about Rosa Huberman. She was 5 foot 1 inch tall and wore her browny grey strands of elastic hair in a bun to supplement the Huberman income. She did the washing and ironing for 5 of the wealthiest households in Malking. Her cooking was atrocious. She possessed the unique ability to aggravate almost anyone she ever met. But she did love Liesel Memminger. Her way of showing it just happened to be strange. It involved bashing her with wooden spoons and swords at various intervals. Sorry, that's not funny. When Liesel finally had a bath after 2 weeks of living on Himmel Street, Rosa gave her an enormous injury-inducing hug, nearly choking her. She said, "So Mensch, du Dreieckiges, it's about time." After a few months, they were no longer Mr. and Mrs. Huberman, which was, with a typical fistful of words, Rosa said, "Now listen, Liesel, from now on you call me Mama." She thought a moment. "What did you call your real mother?" Liesel answered quickly, "Ocha Mama." "Also Mama." Ouch, Mama, sorry. Pt2 then. She looked over at her husband and him over there. She seemed to collect the words in her hand, pat them together and held them across the table. That Sorkel, the filthy pig, you call him Papa. Verstest? Understand? Yes, Lizel promptly agreed. Quick answers were appreciated in this household. Yes, Mama. Mama corrected her. So much. Call me Mama when you talk to me. At the moment, Hans Huberman had just completed rolling a cigarette, having licked the paper and joined it all up. He looked over at Lizel and winked. She would have no trouble calling him Papa. Right, I'm gonna start reading. How long is the next chapter? It's quite a long chapter. It's not. I'll read this chapter as well. The woman with the iron fist. Those first few months were definitely the hardest. Every night Lizel would nightmare her brother's face staring at the floor of the drain. She would wake up swimming in her bed, screaming and drowning in the floor of sheets. On the other side of the room, the bed was meant for her brother floated boat-like in the darkness. Slowly, with the arrival of consciousness, it sank, seemingly into the floor. This vision couldn't help matters, and it would usually be quite a while before screaming stopped. Possibly the only good to come out of those nightmares was that it brought Hans Huberman, her new Papa, into the room to soothe her, to love her. He came in every night and sat with her. The first couple of times he simply stayed, a stranger, to kill the aloneness. A few nights after that he whispered, "Shh, I'm here, it's all right." After 3 weeks he held her. Trust was accumulated quickly, due primarily to the brute strength of the man's gentleness, his bareness. The girl knew from the outset that he'd always appear mid-scream, and he would not leave. A definition not found in the dictionary. Non-leaving. An act of trust and love, often deciphered by children. Deciphered by children, sorry. Hans Huberman would sit sleepy-eyed on the bed as Lizel cried into his sleeves and breathed him in. Every morning just after 2 o'clock she fell asleep again to the smell of him, a mixture of dead cigarettes, decades of paint and human skin. When morning came in earnest, he was a couple of meters away from her, crumpled among halved in the chair. He never used the other bed. Lizel would climb out and cautiously kiss his cheek, and he would wake up and smile. Some days Papa told her to get back into bed and wait a minute, and he would return with his accordion and play for her. Lizel would sit up and hum, her cold toes clenched with excitement. No one had ever given her music before. She would grin herself stupid, watching the lines drawing themselves into his face and the soft metal of his eyes, until the swearing arrived from the kitchen. "Stop that noise, Sorkel." Papa would play a little longer. He would wink at the girl, and clumsily she'd wink back. A few times, purely to incense Mama even further, he also brought the instrument into the kitchen and played it through breakfast. A few times, purely to I've already said. Papa's bread and jam would be half eaten on his plate, curled into the shape of bite marks, and the music would look Lizelle in the face. I know it sounds strange, but that's how it felt to her. Papa's right hand strolled the tooth-coloured keys. His left hit the buttons. She especially loved to see him hit the silver sparkled one, the C major. The accordion, scratched yet shiny black exterior, came back and forth in his arms, squeezing the dusty bellows, making it suck in the air and throw it back out. In the kitchen on those mornings, Papa made the accordion live. I guess it makes sense when you really think about it. How do you tell if something's alive? You check for breathing. The sound of the accordion was in actual fact also the announcements of safety, daylight. During the day, it was impossible to dream of her brother. She would miss him and frequently cry in the tiny washroom as quietly as possible, but she was still glad to be awake. On her first night with the Hubermans, she had hidden her last link to him, the grave digger's handbook, under the mattress, and occasionally she would pull it out and hold it, staring at the letters on the corner, touching the print inside. She had no idea what any of it was saying. The point is, it didn't really matter that the book was about what it was about. It was what it meant that was more important. The book's meaning. The last time she saw her brother. The last time she saw her mother. Sometimes she would whisper the word Mama and see her mother's face 100 times in a single afternoon, but those were small miseries compared to the terror of her dreams. At those times, in the enormous mileage of sleep, she had never felt so completely alone. As I'm sure you've already noticed, there were no other children in the house. The Hubermans had 2 of their own, but they were older and had moved out. Hans Jr. worked in the centre of Munich, and Trudy held a job as a housemaid and childminder. Soon they would both be in the war. One would be making bullets, the other would be shooting them. Hey guys, so today I'm going to be painting my nails with this stuff. It's I don't even know what it is. Nail polish. That's it. It's just nail polish and it's black. It's the main colour I wear just because